Topic of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week, we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After selling, I put money in my project. I have 2 projects. 1 is for construction of my house, 2 is for educating my children.
Excellence in innovation, the passion and drive to succeed, and the right mindset to grow your business. Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Brought to you by Operation Wealth Creation.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's better to foster respect instead of fear and pain.
Cause a good school equals a better life.
Raising voices.
I remember the lockdown, when the streets were empty and our lives disrupted, when businesses closed and our livelihoods hung in the balance. Hospitals were full. We lost loved ones, jobs, and hope. Our children couldn't study anymore. We cannot let this happen again. We should not go back. Get fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and join the millions of Ugandans who are already vaccinated.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to this special segment, the Newsreel, and we'll be talking about what's happening around you, or what has been happening. What have you heard for the last couple of hours from the time we broke off for the weekend? Well, we'll be getting into the discussion, and I'll tell you that one thing that has been quite dominant on the Ugandan timeline, that is the satellite. At least I'm pretty sure you've been hearing much about this from Friday. And again, I've had very many questions that have been bounced off to me. Sometimes I'm thinking, I don't think I'm even in a better position to explain some of these things. And well, we'll be getting into all that. Well, this morning, myself, Philomena, Mastiko, and Mollen, Kenyena, plus Felix Nkunda, we're going to be going through some of these, but also we will be having a guest on the show later on who will be explaining as explaining to us more about this satellite. And it's not any ordinary person. I feel like actually the guest we have this morning is in a much better position, and that is Dr. Monica Musenero. Now, this one here is the Minister of Science and Technology here in Uganda, and we're very happy to have you this morning joining us, Doctor. Well, we are trying to work on that so that we can be able to have a very seamless interaction as she takes us through what this satellite is all about. Everybody's talking about the satellite, the first Ugandan satellite to be launched. Well, briefly, just to take you through, it was actually supposed to be launching yesterday, but we did have a bit of hiccups here and there, and it was scrubbed off by the American space the American space, that is NASA, that did postpone it to today. So maybe by 1:30 p.m. it could be launched. We'll be seeing it happening. And like Mollen over here said a couple of minutes ago, Ugandans will be very happy to witness what's going to be happening there in Virginia. But maybe just to start off, Mollen, you could probably give us Well, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Doctor. How are you doing? How are you feeling this morning?
Well, I hope, like many Ugandans, we have prayed a lot that nothing happens again to our launch today. So I slept prayerfully.
I know, but we can only be optimistic, Doctor. Now, getting straight into it, we have been talking about this satellite, and I will tell you that an ordinary Ugandan, much as we are very happy and excited that it is the first satellite for Uganda to launch in space, maybe you could give us some more nitty-gritties about this. What is it? What, to an ordinary Ugandan, why should they be happy that we are having such a historical moment today?
I think Ugandans are happy about the symbolism. Not just that we are going to have a satellite, but the symbolism this represents, that we are stepping into a new era as a nation. We are stepping into something that we had hitherto not dreamt of having. And a satellite is a very high-level technology. That's why we have not been able to have one. But at the same time, it impacts on our daily lives, and it can quickly improve the lives of individuals. Sometimes people don't differentiate between a satellite and a rocket. So the satellite is a smaller thing than that rocket that we were seeing, that vessel which is supposed to carry it. So it's a smaller construction. It will be carried by that vessel which we saw yesterday, which will go into space, and it goes to a spatial, very big station. It's also a big satellite called the International Space Station. Now, when it reaches there, there are many other satellites in that rocket that we saw, and it will be then deployed in space, and it will move around the Earth. So it will be like a big box with wings, a box with wings which capture the sunlight. It is driven by solar, and it will keep rotating around the Earth. And so every day, it will pass over Uganda. And because it is our station, we are the ones who have the right to capture the information coming from it. Nobody else, unless we give them permission. And This is going to make, if we can really organize very well here at Science, Technology, and the ground station, it will transform a lot of things for us. For example, we'll be more accurately able to predict weather, not just the daily weather, but the climatic conditions that affect production. We'll be much able to look at any threats like disasters which are coming quite earlier, because now we have our own satellite, we can get all the information that we need. Because before we have been buying, and when you buy, you can only access what you can afford. You can't start buying all the information, but now we have everything. We will be the ones here to limit ourselves. So, but also, you see, when a nation begins to go into these high sciences, then you begin to sit among others. You begin to be part of the discussions. So the symbolism of this launch is that Uganda has broken a certain barrier. Uganda has broken a certain barrier, and we are launching ourselves as a nation into that new sphere. So I'm praying, and I've been praying, like many Ugandans, we are very prayerful people, that really nothing happens today, and our satellite is launched.
Well, Honorable Minister, well, thank you very much. You've taken us through an elaborative process of how that is going to look like. But we're also wondering or concerned about the implementation process of this satellite information. Because like you put it across, we're going to have to be making better progress when it comes to weather prediction. But an ordinary Ugandan would be wondering whether this implementation process of how we're going to be acquiring data has been integrating relevant authorities that will be doing the work, because you look at the fact that we're going to be looking at forest cover, all these weather processes. How far are our scientists in Uganda involved, apart from the three that we saw who have been at NASA? Are we involving our scientists here back at home so that they are able to decipher this satellite data that is coming, that will be coming from space? And also, how far have we gone in terms of setting our Earth station here, like it was said by government that we'll be having that station in Poma, in Mukono?
I think I want to reassure you and reassure the Ugandans that the current state of science in Uganda is very serious. We are really serious. What we are dealing with are not very easy things, but we are giving it all to make sure that we are ready. So we have already been working at Impoma to refurbish the place, which had been abandoned or really misused, I think, misutilized, because there wasn't, I think, a lot of value going on there, although there are some agencies that have been there, but the part that have been given to us, we have worked on it. So the physical work is there, the equipment to receive this information is already being installed and tested at the site. Of course, the 3 engineers are back, and they're going to be integrated in the team which is here, which is working to develop the satellite, the space program. But while they were away, we have reached out to all people who have expertise in the country, and even to those who are not in the country, but are positively leaning to us so that we can deploy expertise. We are even in the final processes of hiring a consultant, but we have some people, although we didn't have a training program in Uganda, there are some people who have trained, very highly experienced, especially in the program in South Africa and in other countries. So we have close to 20 experts, and about 12 of them up to PhD level. Some are in universities and some we are doing private practice. So this team, our technical team, is working very close, but we also have in the other agencies in the country, we have experts. So we have a task force. There is a task force which is working, and we have had a lot of meetings, and now they are working as the technical team to come up with a program. So there is the readiness to receive information and installation of the Earth Station equipment that is on course, and we're going to be ready, and expertise is there to handle data. But then there is building the bigger program, which is going to handle other things like the next satellite that we are building, and the putting up the national strategic direction. We have already organized this, and with the support of all Ugandans, we should be able to make this work very well, quite well for us as a nation.
Okay, Doctor, now still speaking of this Pearl Africa satellite, you did talk about providing quite data, and I know that the data also cuts across very many sectors. I did read somewhere that it will also be quite very helpful when it comes to the oil pipeline, and maybe if you could throw some more light on that. And you also did talk about when it comes to weather. Now, an ordinary person, again, would be asking, we have been seeing all these weather forecasts, so what significant difference are we going to be able to see as a result of the Pearl Africa satellite?
Thank you very much. Satellites are usually referred to as eyes in the sky. So you have eyes in the sky. You are able to look down on everything on your country. What this is, we have been having this information, but as I told you, we have been to Kusaka, as Mzee says, His Excellency. He keeps saying Kusaka. We go and request other people. And so they cut for you, like if you are eating at the neighbors, you can't determine how much you eat and the mix of what you eat. But if you're cooking in your own house, you can decide how much salt to put, which spices to put, the mix of food. So we have been getting some of this information because nations which don't have their own satellites have to beg information, either from, there are some free access pieces of data out there, but of course, as you can imagine, they are very poor quality and very limited. Some nations, if you can't afford to buy, you can use that one. But then for you to get real data that you need to analyze the details of to help your country, you need more information. So hitherto we have been buying, but it's quite expensive. And this is one of the things that we are also positioning our satellite to do, that we can actually sell some of the products that are coming out, some of the information. Many times when you talk about products or satellites, people don't imagine, but a satellite generates a huge amount of information, and that information can now be packaged and sorted out and packaged to serve different purposes. Yes, this satellite will help with everything that we can see from the sky. The oil pipeline, not only the oil pipeline, but the activities taking place across the oil ecosystem. It will also help us with our minerals. It will help us with predicting disasters. It will help us to see things before they reach us. And because we can capture this information, it is going to depend on our ability to sort this information and package it and use it, because we will generate the information, but again, the implementers, the users whom we give this information, will really make the difference. That now that I have accurate weather information, that rains are going to delay, what do we do with it? But we'll be able now to engage more accurately.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Doctor. And again, I hope that this time round it runs smoothly without any hiccups. The excitement was a bit too much for us yesterday, and right now I hope that well, thank you so much.
I know. So today, Uganda, pray Uganda.
Yes.
That nothing happens. Let's pray today.
We are on our knees. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much,
so
Doctor.
We will be having the central. We'll be having our central place at Kololo today at the Science Week, and where we will have that central watching place to set up a good space there. So we will be there. I will be there, and other people will be there so that we can literally witness this together. And I want to invite all of you, please come and look at the Science Week. It is something. It will restore your confidence in us that this satellite is just part of what we are doing. When you reach there and see what other things are being done in not only even in the aerospace program, but in many other areas. So I want to invite you and invite all the Ugandans who are watching to make sure that between today and Wednesday, you pass by Kololo and see what science is doing in the nation.
Much, Doctor. We certainly will be there to, witness the progress that is really being made in this field. Still getting back to the launch, it will also be running live on UBC TV. And for those of you who are not able to make it down there in Virginia, you can be able to witness it. But I would love to hear from you, Felix. I don't know, what do you think about this? Isn't this some major progress when it comes to the field of science and technology, especially here in Uganda? I mean, previously we've had His Excellency fronting how we are going to be, trying to make diversions. Now we are going to focus on science, because he believes it's the way into the future.
Well, of course, there's much strides that we have made as a country towards enhancing our availability and capacity, or building capacity, if I may use, in terms of innovation. And clearly, that all explains the purpose of even setting aside a particular ministry to allude to that. Most recent, we have seen various or enormous innovations, and away even from the satellite, you may want to spring back from the establishment of the Namambe Stretch industrial area, where we have seen enormous scientific innovations. Like we have had today in Uganda, we have a factory that makes phones. We have that. We have a factory that makes these electricity transformers. I don't know what they call them in that scientific language. Go to the Kira EVs of this world. You can imagine today Uganda has its own cars on the road. You don't know how beautiful. And these are electronic cars. So this is an addition to what is already in existence, as a matter of fact. So it brings the evidence to life when His Excellency continuously talks about us investing more and more in sciences. The minister has well broken it down, the purposes of this satellite and what we expect from it. The fact that we are going to shoot up in the skies, and I will be joining very many gladiators who have been there for some time.
Yes.
Ugandans, should they be excited? Yes, they should, to an extent, And when the only challenge we have probably lately is about the PR. It's something that Ugandans have not understood from just being a satellite.
Hasn't really
sunk well, honestly and truly. But the Mollens of this world will be there to help and guide us in why it's a big deal, what we shall be saving, because I've heard in the corridors that there's a lot of money that will be saved after this is being launched. However, this being done must be able to trickle and actually, as a matter of fact, I know that it works directly into the general objectives, the national objectives of Uganda, and definitely Vision 2040, because the expectation is that by that time we are expecting that we will be able to collect our own data at a cost that we can regulate, which I hope is true. I think Mollen and the colleagues will be alluding to that.
She's going to be throwing more light on
no
that.
wonder now it explains why His Excellency was pushing for things like the Uganda Airlines revival, previously. Probably all these things were patterned in a sequence that should be realized in phases. So should we be excited or happy? Definitely. It's a big deal for Uganda, and the expectations are quite high, but we must also caution the people in charge to manage such innovations and investments very much well for the benefit of entirely the country, not individuals.
Okay. Now, getting back to weather and climate, which is quite a very key area here, Mollen, and which I would really love to hear from you, seeing as that this satellite, it does possess, I think they called it a multi-sectoral camera. It will be availing more information, and one of the key things they also did talk about was, you know, trying to show the early warning signs. I don't know how is, I mean, for, yes, of course, you as the people in authority, you can definitely you're going to be getting quite a lot of information, but again, how is this going to be helping an ordinary person? How are they going to be benefit from these? Look at people like farmers, people who do so much on weather.
Well, Philomena, and you recall that the minister also talked about the long-term forecast in terms of seasonal forecast, and these are the, you know, the direct products that the meteorologists give out to benefit the farmers because they're able to prepare for the season. But specifically, when you look at these satellites, the science behind it about, you know, the multispectral component of it, and also the fact that it gives a much bigger resolution than the ones that we have been using is key, because it's also a red, an RGB, a red, green, blue spectrum kind of satellite, and that will mean that it will be giving us more products. But also, I think the idea of a satellite, one can understand it as something that takes an aerial view from the sky. It basically gives you the profile of the atmosphere, both during day and night, because it uses the infrared spectrum. It's able to detect the cloud structure. Actually, it's also able to detect motion of the clouds so that it gives you the wind speed. Yes. It also gives you the areas, if you hear government saying that we'll be able to detect where there is going to be landslides or to know where there are going to be disasters, it's all in line with the fact that when the satellite takes those images, we're able to sequence them into a system, because you're able to know this cloud at a particular time, the next cloud, how is the motion going. So that is how, as meteorologists, we use the satellite data to determine the systems in place. Now, it's one of the tools that are used in making a forecast. Yes. It's not basically that now we have a satellite, we are going to be doing a certain, you know, out of the ordinary forecasts. It's one of the tools used for forecasting, and it's a great addition right now because, yes, it's not the first weather satellite that we have been using in Uganda. We have had satellites like SAT-24, the ones that Minister talked about, our partnerships that we've been doing, not only as Uganda, but we've been working with the UK Met Office, we've been working with the World Meteorological Organization to make sure that we're able to tap into the satellites over Africa. But then again, at that point, the resolution is not as much as the ones we expect. Yeah,
because I was about to ask, like every other day here, you're giving us forecasts. So I mean, what difference is it going to make? Because me, if I know it's going to rain today at about 1,
you know?
It's like Uganda, every other person would care. They would say, for us, we care about whether it will rain or shine. Yes. But do you know who gives that information? The meteorologists that give the information of that use specific tools, and the satellite is one of them. They need certain tools, models, satellites, you know, real-time data from a specific area to make that forecast, which is why this real-time data actually comes in handy. And I'll give you an example. The satellite that we show here every day on our weather segment, and I'm able to tell you this is what is happening in Masaka, this is what is happening in Entebbe. Yes. I'm basically tapping from the space. And we have been using satellites like UMITSAT satellites that is currently in play. We're able to see over Uganda, but also my expectation for this satellite is it will be able to give more resolution. You're able to see, to integrate, for example, if I'm seeing the clouds over Kampala right now, with a higher resolution, I'm able to distinguish and know that these are low clouds, these are more precipitative.
So does that also, when you speak of resolution, does it also have an element of certainty, or those are two different aspects altogether?
Well, those are two different aspects when it comes to certainty with a forecast. But I will tell you this, because the satellite's information is telling you what is happening, not what is going to happen. It's up to you as a scientist to determine from what is happening, what will happen. Now for me, exactly, I'm able to tell that, now this satellite is showing me that there is a lot of water in this cloud. I can tell from the satellite, but also the trend from the images it has been showing me for the last 1 hour. What does this mean? Then I can base on that with other tools to make a forecast. Now, the satellite will not be telling us what will happen. It will, give us an idea of what is happening, so that as scientists we determine what will happen from that information. No, it's not, because it's not. It's not worrying, because it's the science behind it. Yes. Imagine a scenario where you're able to know that for the last 1 hour the winds have been moving northwards. Now, what are the possibility that they will continue moving northwards? That is, it takes a scientist or someone who is able to determine how weather formation works for you to know what
so that means there's a probability that sometimes you could have it wrong.
No, you use what you have,
exactly.
the data that is being availed to you in the moment, and what has been availed to you previously to probably
predict.
To predict.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, a satellite imagery is observation as well, because it's space observation, and we also use manual observations, because we do have like an array of weather stations across the country. So it's one of the tools, one of the many tools that we use to make forecasts, but not to take away from its addition right now, because like I mentioned, it's adding a higher resolution kind of satellite data. And if you talk about weather and climate, we're also going to be using it for other uses, because its core value is to provide all these remote sensing products. Among those, we have land use. We're able to get the forest cover. We're able to get, designated areas. We're able to interpret which areas have been, lost in terms of cover. Then you also have systems like the GIS.
Actually,
you're able to get into the global information system. You're able to get into, there are a lot of products when it comes to remote sensing that will still be, we'll be getting from these satellites.
Now, briefly, Mollen, could you just tell us, is this going to be some sort of saving? Would you talk about a saving? Now, when we talk about all these, I feel like all these are incorporated in one thing. So are we seeing maybe UNMA saving quite some resources because of this satellite?
Well, the resources will be saved maybe on a government level, considering that there might be maybe more trainings that would be involved when it comes to deciphering certain data. But we are looking at the fact that before we've had partnerships, like I mentioned, the UK Met Office, we've had World Meteorological Organization, which is the main body that controls all these national meteorological organizations. They have been providing this data. So you look at the fact that we will not be yearning more for those partnerships, since we will have some of these products as our own. But the saving part, I wouldn't bring it into the picture, because this is science we are talking about. We're looking at more.
It requires financial resources.
It does require, because we are actually going to have more in running the Earth station as well. But the benefit of it is unimaginable. And we're talking about climate change right now. We're looking at an era where we're likely to have more weather events, more extreme weather events, from flooding to landslides. So if we're able to get some of these tools to help us make better predictions in terms of how we can save lives, how we can make early warning systems, this is much more than saving for us to curb such events.
Well, there you go. You heard it from the meteorological perspective. And clearly, it seems that with the resources, the financial resources, the saving is a little bit debatable. But we are going to save very many other things. Well, it's going to be launching, I'm talking about the Pearl Africa satellite today at 1:30 p.m. And like the Honorable Minister did say, we'll be able to see that. But also here on UBC TV, we are going to be showing that launch live. So don't miss out on this milestone for Uganda, especially when it comes to the field of science. That's it from our newsreel. We're going in for a break. When we get back, we'll be looking at the big stories in our dailies. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
It's better to foster respect instead of fear and pain.
Cause a good school equals a better life.
Raising voices.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, the press review this morning are looking at some of the big stories in our dailies, Monitor, New Vision and Daily Nation. And with the Daily Monitor, Uganda bombs new ADF camps in Congo, and the strikes were conducted using the 2 Sukhoi Su-30 fighter jets and 2 Mi-24 attack helicopters, according to highly placed sources, and targeted rebel bases on the Congo side of Mountain Rwenzori. And in more tragic news, 19 killed as Tanzanian precision airplane plunges into Lake Victoria. And the picture over there showing volunteers rescuing survivors of precision air crash in Lake Victoria. This was in the northwestern city of Bukoba, Tanzania yesterday. Now the plane nosedived into the water as it landed, killing at least 19 people, 2 of them believed to be rescuers, and 26 of the 43 passengers were pulled out alive. Very tragic. Now in more news, Bamgemerere Rukutana reconcile. Archbishop condemns abductions and police post attack linked to rebels. And still in more news, a fire frustrates a satellite launch, and they're giving you all the details story of the Africa satellite, which is expected to be launching today as the day goes by. And on to the second page of the Daily Monitor. Mubende locals leaders protest fresh lockdown. Now, as we all know it, they were given more 21 days to make sure that they still carry out all the directives that were passed by His Excellency. And taking you back in history, Nigerian airliner crashes, kills 143 people. The year was 1996. And Roosevelt wins fourth term. The year was 1944.
And crossing over into the New Vision, First Lady challenges men on parenting. Now that was while she was launching a family focus during the Life Ministry Leadership Forum at Makere. Details are on page 4 and 5 of the New Vision. But also a big headline right there, Uganda's first satellite goes into space today. Now satellite is scheduled to lift off from NASA Center. Details are on page 7. They also give you a picture right there of the Ugandan engineers who successfully completed their work on Pearl Africa Sat-1 and handed it over to the aerospace that is to be launched into space. Quite an interesting one right there. But also Kingfisher oil rig installation commences. Details are on page 6 of the New Vision. And Uganda Air Force bombs ADF main camp. That is a story on page 8 of the New Vision. Crossing over onto the second page, President eulogizes Kano Kashiringi. They give you more details on the president's speech on that. And of course, also giving you pictures right there, news on camera about some of the operation, and team chair right there, MK, in a project as well as some of the team from Toyota ahead of the project, handing over donations of some of the chairs that are to help with the Prayer Ministries International Organization. Much more of the stories in the New Vision.
Sports section, Daily Monitor. Klopp, everyone to blame for injuries. Now, several high-profile players, including Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, Diogo Jota, and Timo Werner, have been ruled out of the World Cup through injury, with the tournament starting on the 20th of November. And in the Premier League, Arsenal reclaimed top spot. Arsenal moved back to the top of Premier League after a prize 1-0 win over Chelsea as Villa hit United. We wish you a quick recovery, especially to our Man U people. They'll be okay.
Well, a recovery it is. And we cross over onto the New Vision Sports, which right there is talking more about the Ndeje University Games. And of course, they give you a picture of Makayondo leading the Ndeje University team ahead of the game against parliamentary team that includes MPs and that had the FUFA president as well, MP from that is Bujili municipality as well. A lot of key figures right there as they were going for that tournament. Now, invest in sport to grow integration. That is the message that also came out from this preparation and looking at the East Africa University Games in Ndeje 2022. Ahead of that, they give you pictures of the FUFA president Moses Magogo as he was playing woodball right there with Honorable Asuman Basalirwa as well. Quite interesting one, and you can get more details in the New Vision paper for today. Lugujo asks MPs to support, looking at the Ndeje University Vice Chancellor Professor Lugujo, who has implored Parliament to be at the forefront of this and make sure that we have better games. Now, they also give you the tables, of course, who is leading, and of course, all the premierships around. Also, Uganda leaving a mark in New Zealand. That is also right there for you in the sports section.
The Daily Nation: counties are paid 35 billion Kenyan shillings to ghost workers. Africa is a village indeed. And counties are projected to spend about 186 billion on salaries this year in the theft case. And of course, showing also phony salary accounts haunting governors. And they're giving you some headshots of some of the salary that has been, the people who have been given the governors who have been in charge of these areas where ghost workers have been put on the payrolls. Looking at Vihiga, Mombasa, Migori, Nandi, Nairobi, Nyamira. These are some of the counties, and they're also giving you a cut down of some of the amounts of monies that have been sent to these counties for the ghost workers. Question is, where did the money go? Now you can get that answer in the Daily Nation this morning. Kenya rules New York Marathon as Sharon Lokedi and Evans Chebet win women's and men's races respectively. Catch again that story of victory in the Daily Nation. Secrets of the SGR contract. Now Murkomen spills the beans. And also 19 dead in plane crash, 26 survive. The Daily Nation this morning. Grab yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor as well and the New Vision. But also circling back to our traffic situation this morning. Point to put into consideration, it is a Monday morning. It's quite a rush hour as I speak, and clearly it's very, very evident on our roads this morning. I want to look at the route from Namamve through Boyogere, crossing over to Chireka and continuing all the way via Nakawa Lugogo straight into town. Now taking it from Namamve, the road already is quite dominated by too much traffic, and we also do have different traffic build-ups as you are accessing Boyogere all the way from Namamve. The orange stretches clearly showing that the traffic over there is already in high gear. Looking at also Chobe Road, which would bring in all the road users to join the main road, is quite free this morning, but as you get into the main road, you would be expecting again traffic over there. And crossing over via the bypass straight to Chireka, I could say that the traffic here is very intense. It's quite a very busy town center. We do have a lot of businesses over there, but we also do have very many road users. Now looking at Kamli Road again, another shortcut that will connect you straight to Chireka. It's quite a free one. Again, we are seeing quite a lot of traffic around the joining point here at the junction. We also do have cars coming in from Namgongo Road over here, creating a traffic as you join the main road. Continuing all the way to Banda, do expect quite a lot of traffic. I could say that there are long stretches that are covering up the biggest part of this road. You do see the reds here. We also see the oranges here are clearly showing you that the traffic in these specific areas is quite intense. As you're getting closer to Banda taxi stage, expect the traffic to get heavier by the minute. We do have cars joining in from Chambogo and getting into the main road. So yes, do again expect some chaos over there. And as you're continuing through Chambogo all the way to Nakawa, it's still the same story. The long stretches in orange are showing traffic build-ups. It could be moving, but at such a very slow pace. Getting onto the junction here, we do have cars coming in from Tinda Road. We have cars joining in from Chinawataka Road and cars continuing all the way. Hence, seeing the traffic at this junction. And again, I could say you're not in the clear because as you get closer to Nakawa, the traffic over here just becomes something else. So again, please stay on and you could start looking at plan B. I wouldn't really advise for you to go on this route. We do have cars also joining in from Newport Bay Road to get onto the main road, which is still Ginger Road. So do expect more traffic. And as you continue through all the way Kampala Ginger Highway, the trend continues and well, I could say you're not in a safe space. Looking at this area again, we're having cars connecting in from Wampel Avenue. We have cars connecting in from Old Port Bay Road. So like I always say, make sure that you make an informed decision. Otherwise, this Monday is not really going to spare you, especially if you're coming in from these areas. So again, stay on. And also knowing that border borders, really it's going to be a little bit hard. I did see someone warning and asking people that if you use a border to get into town, you may now start being very creative on the ways you're going to get into town. Again, I'm yet to see this crackdown happening, but it's all in the name of cutting down on the number of accidents we are witnessing every single month, as we have been shown by the Traffic Police Directorate. And I hope this can actually work. That's it from the traffic updates this morning, and I will leave Mollen to give us more about the weather and climate change. I know COP27 is still going on. Mollen, how is it? Where are we as we speak right now?
Well, yesterday we officially kicked off with COP27, and of course with the opening session right there in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Of course, this is a conference that has gathered world leaders from developed countries as well as the developing countries to ascertain a plan into curbing the effect of climate change and even devise more means on how we can reduce temperature rise. Now, we do know that we have also had representatives in Uganda. We do have the Honorable Minister, but we've also seen head of states from East Africa. President Ruto is there, Kagame is there, and of course to make sure that we're able to get a plan that will get us into a good place. Philomena, I think it's a good place to start when we're looking at East Africa also facing its climate challenges, and then you see representation at COP27. Obviously, we do expect that our voice will be heard.
Well, that's the prayer. Well, more still coming in from Mollen, and she's also going to be giving us the weather forecast. Again, I can't wait when we have that satellite up there. I would be so excited to hear the weather forecast. I really want to see how it's going to be changing. I want to wish you a wonderful Monday morning. I am Philomena Mastiko.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. And of course, we talk about the Ugandan satellite as well. This is clearly a good addition that will be helping with the weather forecasting process, and also the fact that we will be getting more data in terms of remote sensing applications. And I think that as for now, the science behind how this satellite information is going to be used might be really a little bit complex, but the good news is that it will be making more addition to the products that we do here on a daily. And of course, we look forward to the fact that also the program, we do know that this satellite has been launched under the program, the BIRDS program, that is being done in Japan at the Institute of Aerospace. And of course, with Japan, Zimbabwe and Uganda in partnership, those will be the first to launch their satellites under this program, which is the BIRDS program. The expectation is that we're going to have our own stations to man these stations, and of course we're able to now get information from specifically these satellites right here to our control center, where Ugandan scientists will be able to integrate this data to the end users. Now, the expectation is that we will be getting more information when it comes to land use, when it comes to GIS, when it comes to also weather forecasting as well, and more products that are expected from these satellites. Now, that will be launching today, and of course we do know that UBC will be broadcasting more of that live. But then again, we head over onto what is happening in Egypt in terms of COP27. Now, this is the UN's climate summit that is done annually in anticipation that they will be coming up with a plan or an accord to avert the climate crisis. Now, yesterday we did look at the opening session, of course, in Egypt, where the COP president was giving more information on what we can expect across the two weeks gathering in Egypt. And of course, what he did emphasize is that we are looking at extreme weather events, right from the wildfires to the flooding to the landslide. This is happening all over the world, not just one country. We've had droughts, and all this is because of the extreme emissions of greenhouse gas emissions that we're putting into the atmosphere. So the world leaders will be in a capable hands of making decision on how we can reduce these these emissions that are going into the atmosphere, and of course, in turn, causing us to be in a state where we're seeing a lot of extreme weather events. Now, also the information that was coming in from the opening session is that they are ready to work, both developed countries and developing countries, to ensure that how we deal with these disasters is a unified kind of way. We are all able to actually follow the guidelines that were put across by the Paris Agreement back in 2015, when that accord was signed, where we did have almost all the leaders that are there right now, or the countries that are part to this conference under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, where they're all able to now put their hands together and put a signature to a new accord hopefully that will be driving the world into a much better position to encounter some of the challenges that have been there in implementing the Paris Agreement. Now, we also look at the fact that one of the targets that was laid out by the Paris Agreement is keeping a rise in temperatures to well below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, that seems to be out of reach right now because also the scientific report that did come up earlier from the State of Climate, that is from WMO, which is the World Meteorological Organization, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. All these reports are indicating that we could be far from the target that was set by Paris Agreement. Now, that only means that we will have to, up our game in terms of reducing emissions, because it only means that whatever we're doing is not helping. Now, we have a message coming in from the COP27 president on the opening session that was done yesterday.
Delivered in Glasgow. Over 90% of the global economy is now covered by a net zero target, up from less than 30% when the UK took on the COP26 role. The biggest companies and the financial institutions in the world have committed.
So today the UK handed over global climate leadership here to Egypt. Alok Sharma in tears a year ago in Glasgow. He said then that the deal he got to keep global temperature rises to 1.5 Celsius was on life support. A year on, many scientists believe that goal is now in the mortuary.
So, as we say, Alok Sharma handing over the UK from the Cabinet.
This year and this conference are all about implementation. Countries have to deliver on what they promised.
But they're not. Your memorable phrase, 1.5 is on life support, you said in Glasgow. It's in the mortuary now, isn't it?
Well, it is still very much on life support, and the window the window is closing, but there is still a chance of getting there. We've had 29 countries come forward with their revised 2030 emission reduction targets.
29 from 193.
Well, I believe we will see some more at this conference, and we will see some more at the end, before the end of this year. But I think what that did, that whole sort of yearly ratchet, it has changed the way that countries are approaching this. I know of countries, one of which actually set out their revised number this year, and they're thinking about doing another one next year.
What about today, including NDCs and net zero targets? The report suggests that we are heading to 1.7 degrees warming by the end of the century, not 1.5, but still progress. So to those who remain skeptical about the multilateral process and of the COP process in particular, my message is clear. As unwieldy and sometimes as frustrating as these processes can be, the system is delivering. And there are many people to thank for that, and certainly too many to name. The Prime Ministers and the Presidents who have sensed the changing wind and indeed sought instead to harness it. The Ministers to the miners who recognise a just and sustainable future can only be...
Well, we do know that the target for 1.5 degrees Celsius is unattainable. There is hope that we can still reverse that effect, but the message also coming in from the COP presidency is that we are now going towards a 1.7 degrees Celsius rise, which is far from what countries did agree on in the Paris Agreement. Now, the way forward for right now is to minimize loss and damage, and of course make sure that we can get back on that path. Now, this will call for more ambitious targets. That means countries have to revise their nationally determined contribution. That is in terms of what they're doing to curb climate change, in terms of mitigation, in terms of adaptation as well. That is going to take a lot of ambitious targets. The financial aspect of it is also immense, but we do hope that by the end of the 14 days in Egypt, climate scientists are able to now forge a new path that the world can take in order to reverse the effect. But you also look at the fact that we've had commitments from a lot of countries, and of course the vulnerable countries, also the financial aspect from developed countries is what is keeping the hopes alive. There is hope. There is still a small window, but we also have to act quite swiftly. We have seen most of the presidents from Africa that have also been attending most of these COPs also showing up. Even then, we saw President Ruto, President Kagame yesterday arriving in Egypt for the COP27, and also more that is coming in. We do know that today President Joe Biden is also going to be making a speech on the COP27. Rishi Sunak also expected today to make a speech at COP27, and of course most of the world leaders that have also been at the forefront of making sure that we have a devised way of fighting climate change and its effects, and so that we are able to actually take action and look at a better future. Now we have to tackle this as a global challenge, which is why the UN conference is looking at a more plan that will involve everyone, both developed and developing. Whatever you can contribute to this is really welcome, and they are going to have to set up new goals for countries to follow. Now we wait to see the solution at the end of the 14-day conference, and of course that will be giving us more details of what the world now looks at in terms of fighting climate change. Now away from that, we also want to take a look at what is happening across the country. For today we will be tapping in from the EUMETSAT satellites over Africa, and of course specifically giving us real-time data on what is happening over Uganda. We started up with a rainy system earlier over the island of Lake Victoria. Now that seems to be going a little bit more towards the central part of the country, and we do expect to have more rainy weather that is across the Lake Victoria Basin. That same system in green, yellow colors right there, as well as orange, that is indicative of the rains that are expected over that area. Now we do have rains even as we speak across the islands of Lake Victoria. Kalangal already having those rains. That is the same system heading for Kampala, Masaka as well. Mubende, you can expect to have those rains in your day. And of course more cloudy weather also for the Mount Elgon Highlands. We're looking at more rains also expected for the southern sector for today, but again the satellite is indicating quite a sunny day across the northern parts of the country. Gulu, Padel, Apache, Muria, Moroto, as well as Arua, we're having quite a sunny morning for you, and the same conditions across Fort Portal, Hoima, Mubende. We're looking at a sunny morning, but again it will be a rainy morning for most areas within central Kampala as well. Mukono, Entebbe, looking at more areas. Wakiso as well having quite a rainy morning for this for today. We also do expect that system to cross over into the afternoon. We still have quite an intense system over Lake Victoria. That is what will be bringing in more rains for this morning, especially for the Lake Victoria Basin. That takes in areas of Jinja, already having those peels of rains as we speak, towards areas of Tororo as well. We do have those rains, and of course that will be continuing into much of the day for today. Well, that is it in terms of weather updates for this morning, but we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later than that, we'll also be going into sports, and of course after which we'll be taking you through Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a wonderful Monday.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the
of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
Welcome to English in a Minute. 50 years ago, the first humans stepped foot on the moon. But has anyone ever jumped over the moon?
Jonathan, guess what? My book is nominated for North American Wildlife Pop-Up Book for First Time Writers Prize.
Oh, wow. You must be over the moon.
I am, Jonathan. I could not be happier.
What was the name of that prize again?
To be over the moon means to be extremely happy about something. This expression likely comes from a short children's poem from the 16th century called Hey Diddle Diddle. But we don't really know why over the moon came to mean what it does today. And that's English in a Minute.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After selling, I put money in my project. I have two projects. One is for construction of my house. Two is for educating my children.
Excellence in innovation, the passion and drive to succeed, and the right mindset to grow your business. Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Brought to you by Operation Wealth Creation.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Eight minutes after the hour of 8 a.m. here on UBC TV. Good morning, Uganda. GMU Agenda starts right now. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and of course, with me this morning is Mollen, Kenyena, and Felix Nkonda. Now, when we talk about Uganda, there are very many things that are happening today, but also we cannot fail to talk about the primary leaving examinations. Now, ideally, they're starting today with a briefing because very many other times, so oftentimes I've had people, they believe that when we talk about examinations, we are starting off with a real day when our candidates in respective classes are sitting. But also briefing is part of the examinations because they're passing on to you the guidelines. There are certain things you can't afford to do from the time briefing starts as a school, as an education institution, and as a student. Well, we've had our UCE candidates already starting off their papers, and now finally our boys and girls in P7 classes all over the country are expected to start today with a briefing, and tomorrow they will be sitting for the first two subjects, and then come Wednesday they'll be doing their last two subjects. But also, as we talk about these, there are very many things we are going to have to put into consideration because there are very many factors that probably would be hindering the efficient or the implementation of supervision of picking up exams to make sure that in all the different districts the whole process goes on well. And right now, one of the biggest issues or one of the biggest worries is the Ebola crisis. We have seen districts like Mubende and Kasanda that have been put under lockdown for the last 21 days, and just a few days ago they were added more 21 days. Now the question here is for an ordinary parent. They are wondering, how is this going to be implemented? How are the candidates in these respective districts where Ebola is the epicenter going to seat these examinations? We've already seen a couple of reports from different media outlets showing that there are certain candidates that have been isolated because they're suspected to be contacts of some of the Ebola victims in these districts. Now the question is, how are they going to manage? Or are they going to lose their year like that? You know, very many lingering questions, and hopefully we can be able to try and find a way around them and see maybe what government is doing to make sure that nobody loses out on their 7 years. And also you look at the side of resources. We'll also be part of this conversation, managing PLE exams amidst Ebola crisis. Get into our socials, Twitter #GMU, and let us know what would be the best way to handle. Okay, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? As amongst myself and Mollen, Felix, we discuss about these. But also we can maybe just start off with the excitement among the schools, because, you know, after COVID-19, having your students or candidates finally sitting for these exams and then Ebola comes in, I think it's quite a very hard kick, especially for the people in these districts. But maybe just to hear from you, Mollen, do you actually think our pupils are ready to sit, considering with all these social factors into play? Do you think our candidates are actually ready to sit for their first set of exams after COVID-19?
Well, about being ready, that is going to be up to a lot of considerations, because you also have to consider the fact that these examinations are going to be the first after, you know, at least a better integration of post-COVID. Yes. Because before the ones we had, there were more restrictions, there were fewer candidates, but now we're seeing big numbers. But also we have to remember that these are candidates that have also gone through an education process post-COVID. Now the preparation leading to that is what would determine their performance. Yes, they are ready, but maybe the performance of what they will deliver is what will determine whether they were ready or not. But schools have really been very progressive when it comes to beefing up academic standards, even within the restrictions. And right now the challenge is about Ebola. Now we do know that last week the Ministry of Health did issue out guidelines. Yes. That will be you know, followed during this process. But also remember, schools had given out an earlier circular on the non-candidates being away from school. And now the ministry had to give in another circular saying, you know what, these students should be able to stay, the people should be able to stay in school to avoid the contact. But also I do understand that at least day scholars can still stay home, the non-candidates, to give more space. So that helps with the preparation. But also you look at the fact that right now schools have also been asking for a lot from government. Yes, you want us to adhere to these guidelines. It's already examination time. There wasn't enough time to prepare for most of these SOPs that they are supposed to be running now that there is Ebola. And you have to remember that there was a little bit of relaxation after COVID-19 eased, so most of the schools have not been following the initial guidelines that were put there during COVID, but now they have to swiftly move into that and have examination done for these pupils. Now, the expectation is that maybe they will run smoothly, but you also can't rule out the fact that we could be getting more contacts within Ebola in school, because you have day students who are still there, coming from home to come and do the exams. So we do hope that there is no spread in regard of having these day students relating with the boarding students, but also you look at the effort that has been done by school administrations. They have devised, as you know, spacing of structure that they have put across for examination that will enable at least pupils to sit at a distant level, and that will help with contact. But also the fact that at least they have had several trainings when it comes to how to handle or how to manage Ebola cases, because you still have contacts within the pupils that are sitting for exams. Yes. That should be isolated, but they also have to sit for exams. So how they run the process of isolating the contact students to make sure that they're able to do their exams and also be in the same examination rooms, because a PLE examination is a face-to-face examination. You have to have invigilators right there. You have to have supervisors. So the schools will have to now put on an extra effort to make sure that they still keep these pupils in isolation, but at the same time they're able to do their examination as well. And then also there are some cases where you have administration also, they have to take care of themselves, because some of them are also contacts. And now they have to swiftly make sure that all the the supervisors that are coming, the invigilators that are coming, are tested to make sure that, you know, they don't have any association to being contacts of Ebola, to make sure that there are no more spread of the virus. I think that is where the challenge is, but overall I do hope that it will be a swift process to make sure that the examinations go on really well.
Well, now still talking about examinations, as again we'll be getting into how we are handling them amidst the Ebola crisis. Last week, talking about malpractice, we cannot talk about examinations and we failed to talk about these. Much as the government has really done quite a lot to make sure that they put the people in authority, you know, the invigilators, the scouts, all the security people. I mean, they did have quite a briefing last week, but also we did have a rumor that was making rounds over last week, how apparently that some of the P7 papers, there could have been a possible leak of some of the P7 papers that are expected to be written tomorrow and Wednesday. And of course, UNEB came out to rule that, and they did say sometimes people are hungry for bad press. But again, for the last couple of years, we've also had stories where actually there is a possible examination malpractice. Even talk about the UCE currently here, Felix, we did get reports, and people are being summoned to police to give more details on how it happened and where is the loophole. So when you look at all that whole cycle in the education, because we cannot only cut it to UCE, we will be having USCE in a couple of weeks as well. But how do we break the cycle of malpractice? Much as the previous report could have been the bad press, but we've had also stories in the past. So how easy or how hard is it going to be to make sure that we cut it down, especially now that we have Ebola, that could really be again another issue?
Philo, you know that PLE means primary living examinations, right?
Yeah.
When we're looking at guys in primary, or what Mollen was calling pupils.
Very exciting.
It is quite indeed. But looking at the face of it, at the time someone is in P7, probably they think they're like how old, 13, 14.
Well, that's really
10, 11.
Oh.
Yeah.
10, 11, Mollen.
11, 12.
12.
I think the
Yeah,
best is
12.
like
Maybe.
12.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, 12,
Averagely.
11. Of course,
Yeah.
for sure, some of the sharp kids will be there in
Yeah.
about 10 or 9 or something. But let's focus on the general kid. At the age of 12, what is, like, how much has your brain built to deal with everything that is happening? And I think that's for us the biggest question to ask ourselves. How much are our children exposed to socially, politically, culturally, religiously? We may never choose to discuss some of these things, but these are the total reasons as to why kids either turn out to pass, turn out to fail, turn out to copy, others never even make it to the examination, because the statistics are quite clear that numbers, they reduce all the time.
Yeah.
Now, the effect of the social welfare is quite key, having in mind that these kids who are going to do exams have not actually studied for 7 years. They have studied for 8 years.
That's true.
You understand?
Yes.
Now, because they would have done these exams probably a couple of years ago. But what is the role of the major players? The institutions, like the UNEBs or the ministry, the schools and the parents. How do we use the circumstances around us to assist these kids? Do we still set exams like we used to set when everything was normal? Our expectations still the same like they were before even all these things happened? As these kids go to these exams, what are we putting in place to aid their passing? These are the questions. Because you cannot shift your eyes entirely on an examination and abscond to focus on the processes. Have the teachers actually taught? Are the schools facilitating learning? This is a national exam. A child in Kampala, I won't mention a school, but some of the posh schools around here, is going to do an exam with a child who somewhere deep in the village was not even able maybe to study for what, or yes, they couldn't go to school because of they slept on a hungry stomach. Like, but you're going to do a general
examination with all
we
the
have consistently had those discussions about these general examinations. That do they bring out the true picture of the kind of education we are doing? You understand? How is it a fair approach to this thing that you want to examine these kids after 7 years? In COVID, we have girls who are pregnant. In this country, we have what we call teenage parents. In the villages, you know these things. And some of them, for example, we have seen stories on TV, even on this national broadcaster many a times. There are kids who go to school by boats, I don't know if they're called boats there or ferries.
The canoes and
those small dangerous things. Others will have to go through about 4 or 5 mountains to get, or hills rather, to get to a school hidden somewhere. But we are going to examine these kids without total regard to such factors. That's what I'm saying. As we always choose to discuss this thing they call exams, let us discuss the processes or the road to the exams. That's why you'll hear announcements of the results, and they are only concentrated in particular districts consistently. Wachiso. But you compare these types of schools in Wachiso and the types of schools probably in Gulu, in Karamoja. The whole of this year we have been having family issues in Karamoja. Have these kids actually gone to school? Do we know? Do we care to collect some data and see how to make this particular exercise better? Or for us, we are focusing on one thing, PLE. Chikezo, all kids will sit, whether in Kebong, Luyumbe, whether you studied or you didn't. For us, our duty is to put an exam. Now, that in its own self defeats the right to education. And we are not saying there's anything wrong with this particular one, but we are trying to bring to light the things that challenge what would have been a good thing. Shouldn't we be having a discussion in how these exams are set? Should we be looking at regional exams away from a national exam?
Yes. For
how
like
do
every
other people
region
do it?
has a different set of
Because
exams?
of the challenges they are exposed to are different. I've given you an example.
Yes.
A child in Kampala is dropped, and that is, I'm just want to give you probably, let's look at about 4 or 5 different types of students. One of these kids is dropped from home after they've had a very nice breakfast of milk or porridge with butter and bread, and they have packed an apple, sausage, and yogurt. Then they are dropped to school. You get the point? When they get to school, the teachers are pampering them. Oh, Philo, Che, what? Yeah, the sun sets from where? The sun rises. This, that, the environment is conducive. At break time, the bell will ring. Then they go to the canteen. There's tea, there's bread.
The school is going to avail
all those things because they are paying some hefty bills. Then at lunch, they come back to class. Then they ask him, "Are you satisfied?" "No, I'm not." Then they take them back. They give them another cup of milk. Then they. How doesn't these kids will understand? Even if the teacher is bad, the environment is conducive. Then in the evening they are picked, they pass by somewhere, get ice cream, then they go home, do homework, they watch a bit of cartoon, nowadays called Nickelodeons of what, then they sleep. In the morning, now, there's that child. There's this child who has to walk about 3, 4, 5 miles, barefoot, having woken up at around 5, washed plates, fetched water, and they're going to do probably the same exam.
Yes.
You understand? So, do we ever put in consideration the exposures, the kind of conditions these kids go through? You're going to ask this kid, for example, in Kampala, exams will be in classes by 8. Post-start exams.
Yes.
But you go to Abims, there are Abims of this world. They, down, I don't know, I'm not very good with villages, but I know what I'm talking. Down, where exams will come at midday or 11. You get the point? But remember, probably these schools don't even have electricity. They don't have... You've been having...
The distances they have to move from the collection center,
a child is
the
moving
pickup
2
center.
miles.
Yes.
By that point, they get to school to do an exam. Poor child. You get the point. And we are going to judge them using the same
examination,
sieve. The same... You get the point? We are going to deal with them. We don't care. Whether you left, whether they had spent 2 days hungry, we don't care for us. We just want to assess you. If you fail, you fail. The system has coughed you out. That is your problem. But we are looking at a national examination that is supposed to put in, to activate the other right to education in the Constitution. So for me, I think as exam, and we have consistently said this, we need to revise the examination scheme in this country. We need to revise it. Why do we use the same approach for every child, yet they are exposed to different challenges?
Are you suggesting like an alternative of having regional exams? Because those will also be taking us back. We are trying to move to an era where, at least at a national exam, you're competing to go at an international level of education. Now, it's bad enough that we have There are international schools here that are doing exams that are set with the same students in New York. That's the level that we would want. Now, if you're taking us back to regional assessments, you're trying to put us into a place where we are not moving in terms of integrating skills.
What I'm trying to say is we need not to look at only the able or the well.
There are very many other factors that would have to be put into consideration.
I'll tell you as a matter of fact, the people in the cluster who are able to have education at that are the smallest numbers. The bigger numbers are not able. Education is not available, and that's the honest truth. We need to look at it in a wider spectrum. For example, when you talk about, like, and let me ask this question. One of the major purposes of a national exam is because it is attached to a benefit. It should be attached to a benefit. That a child in a beam, I'm sorry I'm using this, probably it's what I have in my off-head, a beam, Kebong, whatever, or somewhere down in Kabale, or where, the only reason why they will toil through everything to come and do this exam and make sure they pass it is that there's some value attached to it. But what value is attached to some of these exams? Do we ever collect some of the best students from these very places and we assist them? Because that would be the major purpose for having a national. Like when you go, I think you've heard some of how it's in some countries, like when you pass college, you'll be able to pass and go to a national something where you'll be paid for all those things.
Scholarship and all that.
What value do we attach to these national exams? Apart from, you passed, you got 4, you got 1, whatever.
Maybe the value probably comes at different levels.
No, we actually have processes that bring in these students that pass at some of the districts. That,
I would want to know,
those are there.
At the USCE level, really. Maybe if we are talking at different levels.
Because the exams are going to be done at primary exams.
Even PLE, I'm aware that government has programs where they pick out some of the pupils that passed, not with 4, but considering the districts. No, it is there. It is there. Considering the points that they have gotten at a certain district. Now, they look at a district performance. Generally, how has the district been performing? Now, the top pupils from a certain district will also be considered, regardless of whether they get a 4 or not. They will not be put at the same scale like Wakiso, having the tops all in 4s, and how many students will they be there? Will they be in that category? But for a district that has had, for example, 12 students getting maybe 16, there is something there, and they always look at them. They don't just drop them because they have that number. I think that that program is actually there. And now that moves actually onto UCE as well, because you also have district admissions, I think, in terms of scholarships that are given out to certain students coming from disadvantaged districts. I want to put it that, for lack of a better word. They actually get them and are able to get them into the same system of scholarships, considering the districts that performed higher, like the Wakisos and Kampalas of this world. There is that program there, although I think it has not been communicated very well. Like, most parents are probably not aware, but schools are aware, and these numbers are already selected to match the standard.
But also, if we're going to talk about that generally, the fact that we have districts that are still going through a system like that, where do we apportion that blame to? Why would we still be having such an imbalanced education system in all the different parts of the country, and you still expect students from all, or pupils from all these districts to sit the same examination?
And these are the challenges that I think Felix was putting across.
Because when you look at how teachers are deployed, Philomena, you don't want to be taken to some of the districts.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have seen government teachers being transferred there, and they are quitting. Like, I am out of this education.
And you know, that can be the problem, because that works anywhere in the world. You get it. People can be deployed, but do you know why? Because our concentration has since shifted to other priorities. Look at government teachers today and private teachers. Everyone now does it. And yet, trust me, government everywhere in the world is the best employer.
Oh yes.
Best. Everyone will be dying.
Yes.
But the reverse is true in this particular sector. The reverse is true in this particular sector.
Yes.
So I think as we talk about examinations today, our focus should be we need to throw our net quite further. The Ministry of Education is doing good, I can say, but it can do better in some areas. We need to have a more particular approach than a universal approach when it comes to these examinations. For me, that's honestly my suggestion. That because of the challenges these kids are exposed to, we must have a fair approach. For example, like that thing they put on when they add, I think it's at 8-6, when they add some points to people with the villages, the district.
Oh, yes, and also,
then
do they still add the points to the girls?
Action.
They still do?
I think we need to look into that. We need to honestly look into that, because having a different examination for every may be hard, but that particular one, let's be considerate. But as we focus the energy that we put on examination, how about we also put some focus on the processes of education? Are teachers teaching, and later on are actually learners learning? We must make sense of these two things. Do we have the right people in education? So it will be easier for us to make evaluation at points like this when we have answered those questions. But learners are going to do exams. Some of them have not learned anything.
They don't know what.
Because of one, either environment.
Yes.
2, because the people in class are not actually teaching. But 3, also because there have been circumstances that are affecting. Look at the students now in Kasa and Movendi. You can imagine they applied. You know,
yes.
There's lockdown. Some of them probably have not been able to move past some hours. We don't know if, you know Uganda, where we are all trying to patch up pieces here and there. Okay. So, but away from all that, we don't tire to pray for our lovely children who are going to sit exams. We believe and trust that this is an opportunity that is going to expose you to your potentials. We have all been there. That's what they used to tell us. We have all been there. So don't worry, you're not the first ones, they're the last ones. We know as a matter of fact that they are only going to examine things they have taught you. At least that one, I'm sure. No one is going to ask you something.
The prayer right now is that there is some leniency considering everything that we have been going through.
But for, if there are any watching for the invigilators, and please don't lure these children into cheating. Please don't. You're going to ruin their lives. There is no shortcut in life. That's something we need to teach our children from the word go. You've been through a process. You've learned, don't cheat. Just go and write what you can. We are praying for you, and definitely God is going to bless you, and you get out this better than probably you get in it.
While we're still on the topic of cheating, you know, there has been quite, we need to talk about the malpractices. You know what? Because there's been a back and forth kind of thing of, you know, throwing blame at either the schools or, you know, UNEB as the governing body. I mean, recently there was a meeting between school inspectors and UNEB, and examination malpractice was quite a topic for contention in this meeting. And the point was everybody was orchestrating and throwing around blame. The school inspectors were saying, well, the whole issue comes in from UNEB. They have weak systems and all that. But then also UNEB was saying, well, the school inspectors have directed their focus on fraud. If I get the money in and probably leak these examinations, at the end of the day, everybody has individual interest in all this. But I mean, looking at the inspectors and looking at UNEB as a governing body, they are throwing around the blame. Clearly there is a problem there. I don't know, how do we first of all even get to identify those loopholes? Because we didn't look at the malpractice. Yes, who is going to take accountability for this? We did see the malpractice on the students' side, but now when it comes to the, you know, stakeholders, to the key players, to the people in authority who are supposed to be cutting down this malpractice, they're throwing around blame. So what do we do? What happens in an incident like that?
Well, you look at I think the most recent incident where we saw this one involved the parents as well, you know, and then the inspector and then the school administration.
So no one is serving this thing.
I am telling you, this parent aided for this kid to be helped in an exam.
They paid the money, right?
Yeah, yes. And then they are the ones sitting on the backside saying we are blaming administration, while ministry is also trying to blame administration, which we are sure they also take blame. It's still going to have to be a process from the ministry to ensure that such things are not happening. Because I'll tell you one thing. if the parent had approached this administrator saying, you know what, I want my child to be aided, it was a decision of the school administration to say no. However much, they are aware that the student is not performing well, but that kind of malpractice is what is in the school administration. And where do we put the blame now? Who is not helping these administrators or schools to be in a certain position, which means ministry also takes the blame. Because we know that ministry oversees, their mandate is to oversee the school process, the education process, in whatever schools, government or private, it's their mandate. But if you're seeing malpractice, it means that most of these administrators or most of these educationists, like you could call them, are not even adhering to the guidelines coming in from ministry. And even malpractice, I think, should be blamed individually on a particular school that does it. We cannot put a blame on the entire section. Because we know schools, and if you asked around, there are schools that are known for these kind of practices.
Actually, now
and you can put names to them, and now they are districts.
They know that this district, it's a vice.
How come I don't know these districts?
I am telling you,
statistics
they
will
are
show you which
actually
districts
there.
have
It
the
won't
biggest
come
number.
out, which means someone is aware of that kind of malpractice, and they're doing nothing about it. Because even I think the history would show, because 1 year after the other, this school is being caught in a certain malpractice, then the next year they're the ones having an issue with missing whatever. That means there is an issue with that school, but what plan does ministry take after that is what counts,
if I may just say
after
something.
getting caught in the process.
I think as parents, we have a great duty to help our students, and most majorly our children. How about we lower expectations and stop pumping or pushing these kids? You know, let us appreciate our children's abilities. Every child can't be number one, and this is what I tell my students. It is okay not to be number one, because that's the fullest of the potential you can exhibit. You could be good in other areas, but you don't have to, even if you, and that's, stop giving your children false confidence to the point that you want even to buy someone to sit for exams. Now, and then after when they pass you, so mana wange, you say, really? What kind of child? Those are the kids that steal government money. Those are the officials you see. That's how they were nurtured.
It's different telling the child that you have the capacity to get four, as opposed to getting somebody to.
That's the thing. But and then the parent is even willing to facilitate that process. Now, what kind of child is this? But those are people who are disturbing us up here in government, in the judiciary, in the ministries. Those are the ones. So lower the expectations of your child. Support them in their areas of strength. Academics is not the world to life. But if they are not, because anyone, you know, children are different, and so are we, all of us. Like, Philo, you could be good on TV, she could be good. Anyone, help bring the best out of them. Let them know that they are supported to the fullest of their potential. Don't make them build castles in the air, thinking that if your kid has a lower appreciation of mathematics, support them to get better.
Yes.
Those things of thinking they can cheat, and you students, I don't know if I'm perceiving the understanding of the things I'm saying, but you students,
they don't have the authority to, because I mean,
okay, let me talk to the school administration.
Even if you're a student in senior 6, you still don't have the authority to.
No, it's about values, my dear. It's about values, trust me. I have met children or kids who are good at saying no.
Okay.
Haven't you seen those kids who tell no? I
think the bright kids.
It's not even about being bright. It's about values.
But also,
where do you come from?
But also looking at the system right now, we have been conditioned. You'll be surprised that even the brightest child, if they say we do have, probably we are going to sit a mathematics paper.
That's unfair to say bright child. I believe all children have
in that
brightness
specific,
in different
in
capacities.
That specific, well, okay, the students who genuinely lead the classes, if they did say, I do have the math paper that we are expecting to sit the next 2 days, even those ones that you would believe they have the potential to sit that paper and write it without any help, they will get that paper. So I think we have been conditioned
this is what
to a system where we know if I do not excel at academics,
there is a standard that I think as a nation I think we've put across, because this is why parents are getting into this. They are worried that once my child doesn't pass PLE, there is no school at UCE, at whatever level that will admit them.
Yes.
Now, what they are trying to do is move their child from one level to the other.
By force.
By force, because you're talking about, encourage, build on their strength. But at P7, what strength have you realized in them at that level? They need to first get into O level. So the parent is ensuring that let me help them get into O level, and then we'll take it from there. Then at O level, they still don't perform well.
And still push them.
And you want them to go through A level, and you're worried no school is going to take them if they have a low grade. And you're trying to aid their grade. So even when we sit here and say, you know what, maybe this who and who is to blame, we look at the fact that have we provided enough alternatives at a PLE level? If a child were to fail PLE, what alternatives do they have? Because how many institutions are admitting pupils that failed PLE or people that failed that level? We don't have alternatives there.
Ungraded. Of course, that's
probably is so at 30 or something. So, and so some applies at A level.
Probably about 32, because what's 9 times 4?
But how many institutions are admitting, even away from PLE? If we look at O level, where at least there is a little bit of diversity when it comes to other institutions that are out there, how many of them are willing to even take them without a certain number of points? They are very many, and kids are struggling out there because no one is trying to take them in. So I think there should be more
alternatives. The one thing I pick from what Mollen is saying is that we must provide alternatives. And I think that that's for me a very valid submission in relation to curing some of these vices like cheating in schools. But lastly, Philo, if you want my comment, I'll say this. As we take children to school, let us help build confidence and values. Trust me, in this world where we live, we don't trade academics on a daily. That chips in once in a blue moon. Sometimes the only thing we trade are values and confidence. Trust me, it may not take a degree for you to sit on this TV and talk the things, Philo, you talk every morning. Because you may be a first class holder and you can hardly even speak. I've seen lawyers, and I know very many, I can't mention, but they can hardly say a thing, but they are, when it comes to the books, so the relevance of their degrees is as good as useless. You get it? They were really good in class, and that's where it's ended. But we must add some value to our children. They may not be the excellent, and that's not what I'm looking. Me, I normally tell my students as a lecturer,
a child who is
I'm not expecting you to 100 out of 100. I want you to pass. If they have set a bar that the pass mark is 60, get above the pass mark. Even if it's 61, the requirement is you to pass. So I'm not going to condemn you. Why didn't you get 100? And that's what parents do sometimes. The one that kids sometimes do the most awkward things.
Yes.
So for me, I think let's support our children. When they fail, in your opinion, we must create alternatives. That's what Mollen, I think, made for me that is a highlight. Absolutely. How about we create alternatives for our children who don't have the same abilities, I don't want to say failing, but the same abilities like others. They have different potentials, and that's what we have been saying. The syllabus, how inclusive is it? Do you have a bit of agriculture? Do you have a bit of woodwork? Do you have a bit of
This is why you will see different students being good at different subjects. You find a child who's probably very good at mathematics.
Some of them are good at sports, at swimming. At the age of 3, kids are, in Uganda, look at kids who go to Olympics. They are in primary school. But no one wants to, because UNEB is not examining that. No one will talk about it. They will still condemn you for failing math, yet you have 5 medals in your house for swimming. No one cares about that.
So the pressure we are exerting on these children.
Also elevate the alternatives to these assessments. We have kids who are good in Ludo. Anyway, those ones are not important. the games that we play now. How about we build on the kids who are good in running? Let's build on these alternatives to make sense out of them, so that these kids are not, their morale is not put down. As I've said, kid can be good in running, but no one talks about it. They will insult.
The focus is on mathematics and physics and all that.
These funny things.
Okay, well, and briefly, what are your closing shots on this?
Well, I think my first message would be to the parents, like, do not put your dreams on this child. Parents have expectations. I would want my kid to be in a certain school. For them, they have already aligned how they want the future of the kid to be. Now, if they cannot get a mark to go to a certain school, I have to make sure they get there. They want to be proud out there saying my child is in the school, not considering how they are performing or if they could be in a different school, but still get to progress in their education. Maybe support, and this is the general message, support these kids to make sure that they're able to realize their potential. Yeah, you're not supposed to be...
put your choice?
Exactly, a process of that. Let their education status, let their performance status determine where they can be and build on that strength that they have. If a child is not good in math, they are probably good in something else, and you know which schools would be better for them. And, you know, I think also to the school administration, I think it's about time we have a little bit of humanity. You're helping this child to get into malpractice, but is it helping their future? It's helping them right effects, now.
Yes.
Yeah, but long term, it's not going to help. So as an administrator, as an education, it is on your duty to make sure that this child gets to a different level. And while we're in Ebola, I hope that schools are able to, you know, adhere to ministry's guidelines, make sure that our kids are safe while doing this exam.
But Philo, just one word. At least I must thank the schools that always take up the kids who people say have failed. Really, really, and they always prove us wrong after the 4 years.
Yeah.
So we must say thank you to some of those schools, and mostly those are private schools.
Oh yeah.
The people say, some schools say, no, first our cutoff is four. Well, and you find even no teacher got 4 in that school. They are disturbing.
Make sure that you're not part of the problem. We may be talking about malpractice, but subconsciously you may be leading to your child being part of that, or even as a school administrator. We have to support our children in all their efforts. Equally, don't exert that unnecessary pressure on them, all in the name of making a name. Well, that's it for our GMU agenda this morning. Allow us to leave you. We love you, but we have to go. We want to wish you a great Monday morning and a very beautiful and productive week ahead.